All right, so American tariffs are coming to Canada, right? They have to borrow more in order to stay alive. However, if the allowance gets squeezed, then automatically we will have a recession. Boom. Well, just like off cliff. That's it. So, however, can this actually impact our real estate market, and how can it impact? Will it crash our real estate market here in Canada? And will these tariffs that are proposed from President Donald Trump can actually impact us that severely that we have no way out but to get into a recession, possibly even a depression? So I would like to talk to you about this particular matter in this video. So let's get right into it. All right, guys, this is serious, but what does it really mean? What happens when tariffs are actually implemented into an economy between countries, in this case, between United States of America and us here in Canada, right? So it could mean a couple of things. However, if we go into detail, tariffs could economically have a tension between two economies or two countries, which is not good, lead to higher mortgage rates, job losses, and even a housing crash. Now, that's where it gets interesting, right? Because in some outlets of the media, we hear that yes, the market is stabilizing and everything is going well. Mortgage rates are feathering down. This is maybe the bottom and you should invest in all of that stuff, right? But on the contrary, we see that tariffs might impact exactly what we are trying to fix here in Canada, right? So the interest rates are going down, so the tariffs might do the contrary to our interest rates. So there's a possibility for us to have an actual switch and for our mortgage rates to actually go up, right? And we'll get into the cost and all that, but let's go step by step, right? So what are Trump's proposed tariffs? So Trump has proposed massive tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada. So could this hurt? Yes. So there's an example in 2018 where steel and aluminum tariffs raised home construction costs, right? So we went through that. Now, will these tariffs impact every single sector? Probably not, right? But what we're talking about here is real estate, right? So we know what is associated with real estate, right? A strong GDP. Well, we need steel, we need lumber, and we need people mindset to be into place, right? Because if people feel scared, or if people feel that it's not the right time maybe to invest or change to a better property, improve on a community and stuff like that, right? Like those are all impacts. Some are heavier, some are less impactful, but however, like everything, if you add a little bit by little bit, it can add to a huge problem, right? So let's go further. How tariffs could impact the Canadian economy? So Canada depends on U.S. trade heavily. However, it exports to the United States and stuff like that. So if exports slow down, the GDP drops, automatically gives you less room and less purchasing power for real estate, right? So let's keep that in mind. So job losses, it's also another key factor, right? Because if the demand is not high, then we don't need to employ as many employees, right? So the job losses will skyrocket. Maybe in some provinces more than others. However, everybody will be impacted, right? So less home buyer demand. Already discussed that. Inflation and currency deflation, higher interest rates and mortgage costs, right? So inflation, we saw already a tick up in inflation, even though we're seeing the mortgage rates feathering down. However, the Canadian dollar has been already impacted, right? Like already, right? So we're setting a huge departure from the U.S. currency already, and it's scary. So if these tariffs hit, our currency even more, then the inflation and that cycle begins, and who knows, maybe a recession is a mild word. It could be even a depression, right? So uh, then real estate market impact, right? So higher building cost, tariffs hit lumber, steel, construction prices go up. Yes, now on this scale, it almost it doesn't work together, right? Because we're trying to hit the economy in a particular angle where things get more affordable, where we have lower interest rates and all of that stuff. And on the contrary, we might have the lumber prices go up, home prices go up, the affordability will be higher because it takes so much more for us to actually build this house. It costs more, right? So the cost per square foot will go up. Now, if nobody is buying these homes, you can put a price sticker. Really, you can imagine a number and you can put it. But if people or if a consumer cannot afford it, then it really doesn't matter at this point, right? Like, you can have that product, but if nobody can afford it because of job losses and the economical shakedown, then it really doesn't matter, right? What the cost is, because there are no buyers, right? So this is where things get a little bit tricky, right? And that's why the economists, people that go to school to study economy and stuff like that, could also be thrown with the curveball like tariffs, right? So right now, like, it's like, what do we do, right? Like, on a whole, right? Like, I'm not talking about a specific sector, but let's dig in a little bit deeper. So Toronto and Vancouver, the most effective markets. Will they be the most effective markets, right? So why Toronto and Vancouver? Because there are the biggest giants here in Canada. Yes, we have other ones. We have Calgary, we have Montreal, we have maybe Quebec a little bit lower, maybe Ottawa a little bit softer. But however, like, we have the big ones are Toronto and Vancouver. So will they be actually impacted? High price markets rely on foreign investors for economic growth. In a recession hits, real estate prices could tumble faster in the cities. So basically, every investor, and I have been around people and in big table settings where these investors overseas and stuff like that told me straight into my face, like, we don't feel comfortable investing a penny, never mind millions, in Canada, because of all these economical shakes, uncertainties and stuff like that, right? And Toronto and Vancouver have been relying heavily on that investor, foreign investor, and even the local investors, like depended on that, right? Obviously, another sector, a huge impact is immigration and stuff like that. But now immigrants are leaving, right? Like, we can go back and forth on this matter all day long, right? But we need new count of immigrants in order for the wheel to start turning. We need investors. But if both feel that they cannot be sustained in our country, so they will either not come or they're leaving, right? So leaves us again empty, right? So will Trump's tariffs crash the housing market? I got this question multiple times within the last week. Will it crash, right? So if tariffs trigger a recession, house demand will drop. So as we discussed from the beginning of this video, there is a high likelihood, a high percentual chance of this to happen, right? And yes, we could debate. Some sectors will be less impacted than others. However, we can feel and we know from our experience today that 2025 started very cold, very slow, no activity. Listings surged, not only in condo, everywhere. They surged, and it's like that buyer has a lot more to choose from, right? So they're obviously looking at the market as well as the sellers, and everybody's kind of sharing the same news. So it's like, what's going on? So if there is a, a time delay, automatically translates into a price reduction, and so on and so on, right? So there is a high likelihood that we could hit a recession. And even some believe that we are already in a recession for a few years. And to that, like, I had questions. It's like, okay, so if we are in a recession, how come everything seems to be working, right? Like the wheels are turning. So the answer to that is that most of the people in Canada, in order to survive, because people have survived impacts like high interest rates, low demand for housing and all of that stuff, condo market crash all across the country and all of that stuff. So how did they survive? So a simple formula to that is they went into more debt. They borrowed more money. And at one point in this timeline, that will stop. Not because people don't want to borrow more, right? They have to borrow more in order to stay alive. However, if the allowance gets squeezed, then automatically we will have a recession. Boom. Or just like off cliff. That's it. So, and think about it. For years, we were fighting that. Now we are visually stabilizing. However, the truth is that a lot more people are in debt up to here, right? So what buyers and sellers should do. So for buyers, obviously, right, like if you're looking for your dream house to change into a different community, change cities due to employment or whatever the desire is, right? Hold on if you can. Do the finances first. Make sure you know what is going on. Don't rush anything, because that dream house in that community will pop up eventually. All right. And you will be able to negotiate maybe a better deal. However, if you need to buy, you need to buy, right? So if you need to buy, you need to buy, and you call that shot. If you paid for something, that's how much something is worth, right? If you paid $1 million and you could have gotten the house for $950, it doesn't matter. You wanted it, you needed it, you bought it, forget it, move on, that's it, right? For sellers, be cautious, think ahead of the curve, right? Sometimes you have to be a step or 2-3 steps ahead of the curve in order to see results, right? I'm not saying give your house away for free. However, you need to do these calculations. Some communities in our city and anywhere per se are difficult to catch that particular angle, right? And I'll give you an example. So some communities are very slow communities. They don't have a lot of turnaround, right? Like people live there for decades and all of that stuff. So if you're measuring the value, right? So that value could be 2-3 years old, right? And if you apply the same market analysis with these numbers, like you're not doing yourself a favor, because we're in 2025 and it looks definitely different than in 2021 or 2022. So those adjustments have to be made cautiously and they have to be reevaluated. All right. So conclusion. Trump tariffs could shake up Canada's economy and real estate market. Will this be a disaster or just another cycle? So I guess we shall see. However, what do you think will happen? I know people are watching this channel from all across different provinces, from British Columbia, from Alberta, from Saskatchewan, from Quebec, Ontario, obviously, Nova Scotia. So please share your inputs. What do you see is happening in your community? And this is only this is not only for me, right? Like other people also read comments, and they can maybe find these little nuggets and valuable information for themselves. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for getting this far in the video, and I will see you in the next one.